welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. Kay Murray joined in the studio by Ali Moreno, Shaka Hislop and Mark Ogden with us as well. We have a lot to talk about because the PFA Awards have been announced, and that's exactly where we'll be starting tonight. Mohamed Salah edging out Kevin De Bruyne, who won it the previous 2 years, to scoop it this time around. Before that, it was Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah who won it back in 2018. What are your take on this? Do you think it's a fair achievement for Mo Salah?
Well, given that from the shortlist anyway, I chose Mo Salah to win it, I would think so, Kay.
So you're taking credit for it?
I'm taking full credit, Ali. Listen, I just think, I always feel, and I know this is an individual award, and I know it's supposed to be separate from team performances, but given Liverpool's own accomplishments, 2 cups, albeit 1 on penalties, and just a point between them and City, and the importance of Mo Salah's goals to Liverpool's successes, I thought he got the edge just ahead of Kevin De Bruyne. So I have no real issue with that aspect of the PFA Awards or the shortlist for that matter.
Ali?
As close as both these teams were, Manchester City and Liverpool, I think the disappointing part is that we don't wait till the end of the season to, at the very least, come up with a decision that includes results. And in the end, the result that matters the most for both of these teams is who won the league. Manchester City did. And if we go beyond that and we look into the impact of both Kevin De Bruyne and Mohamed Salah late in the season, Salah actually faded, whereas De Bruyne seemed to be thriving. Based upon that, if you have 2 teams that have been as good as they were in the Premier League season, and they're just separated by a single point, and you're looking for reasons as to why you pick one player over the other, my selection was Kevin De Bruyne because Manchester City won it all, and also because towards the end of the season, he was better, more impactful, and more productive than Mohamed Salah.
What's your take on it, Mark, and why don't they wait till the end of the season to decide this?
Well, they do wait a bit later. I mean, now I think it's the second last week of the season, so it's later than the Football Writers Award, which was won by Salah as well. That was voted for in April, so they do leave it a bit later. But I take your point, Ali, that the Champions League final came at the end of the season, and it was the 3rd final that Liverpool failed to score a goal in. So the big prize for Liverpool was the Champions League. They didn't win it. So De Bruyne made the big difference to the Premier League. So I think that my vote was Van Dijk, because I thought that the one player that Liverpool missed more than any other, if he's not there, is Van Dijk, as last season proved. But this season, I don't think we've had a real outstanding player. There's not been a player that has been so far ahead. So you could have gone for De Bruyne, Salah, Van Dijk. But I think the PFA Award is chosen by the players, and they do tend to favour the guys who score the goals. Traditionally, it's a goal scorer, so that's probably why Salah won it. But I think De Bruyne would have been equally deserving.
I tell you who was the player who stood out this season. Heung-min Son. Oh. I know I'm getting ahead of myself
Get ahead
here.
of yourself there, Shaka.
But listen, how he isn't even on the shortlist, doesn't make the PFA team, is simply beyond me. But from that shortlist, and again, to everybody's point, I don't think there's a lot between the main contenders.
Just seeing as though you gave us a tease, we will bring you the PFA Team of the Year, which, as Shaka mentioned, Heung-min Son has not made, despite the fact that he was shared Premier League Golden Boot winner, without a single penalty among his goals as well. Alisson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Virgil van Dijk, Rudiger, Cancelo, Silva, Thiago, Kevin De Bruyne, Salah, Ronaldo and Mane, all in there. But the glaring omission, Heung-min Son. Shaka's upset about it. What do you think about it, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, he was a joint top scorer in the Premier League, wasn't he? He's the guy that was tied with Salah. So, he's definitely deserving of the award. So I think he should be in the team. But Ronaldo scored a lot of goals. Salah scored a lot of goals. Mane scored a lot of goals. So, yeah. Who do you leave out in that
Ronaldo scored a lot of goals for a team that finished, 6th? Heung-min Son scored a lot of goals for a team that kind of eclipsed expectation and finished in the top 4.
So what's harder to do, though? Can that play a factor into it, that you can still shine when the team aren't doing so well? Or should Son be in there instead of Ronaldo?
Well, I think what we have to be very careful about here is that we're not giving a Lifetime Achievement Award, which is what seems to be for Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, did he have a productive season, much more productive than we thought it was going to be with Manchester United? Yes. But to Shaka's point, look, how many times in this show we have spoken about Manchester United, and every time, mostly, it's in a negative manner. There hasn't been anything uplifting about Manchester United. I suppose the one sort of sign of positive energy would be Cristiano Ronaldo. That's still not enough to make it into the team of the year. It's a great story for Ronaldo that he stands out in Manchester United, but I don't think it's enough for him to be above the guy that, hey, if you lead the league in scoring, you have to be somewhere in that front three. Somewhere. And if you don't think it's Salah, and if you don't think it's Mane, then the guy that has to be out of that list is Cristiano Ronaldo. And I know Ronaldo fans are going to go crazy. Oh, how dare you do this to Cristiano? I don't think that Cristiano is all that concerned about it. But to be honest with you, it just feels like Heung-min Son has to be on this team. And Cristiano Ronaldo is more of a lifetime achievement than actually being more deserving than Heung-min Son.
The argument for Ronaldo can only revolve around the fact that Manchester United was so disappointing. That Manchester United season, the only real successes you could point to, if you want to call it that, David De Gea and Cristiano Ronaldo. Whereas with Spurs, there's a lot more you can point to, aside from Heung-min Son, Harry Kane, Kulusevski coming in January, the impact that Antonio. You could make all sorts of arguments as to why maybe it doesn't live up to the importance of Ronaldo, or Heung-min Son's importance to Spurs doesn't match Ronaldo's importance to Manchester United. But every single striker in this game will tell you strikers are judged on one thing and one thing only: goals. So if that is the measure of a striker, and Heung-min Son, who is not Spurs' main striker, leads the league in scoring, I'm not quite sure how you start to fashion that argument for Ronaldo. I understand how you start to fashion it, but I don't understand how that ultimately is your conclusion.
Well, and I think it can't be that the argument for you is, hey, my team was so bad, I scored 18 goals, and so now I should be team of the year. Well, I'm just going to put something out there. He is part of the team. It's not just him and 10 other guys. So he may be the outstanding player in a bad team, but this is still a situation in which you have a group of players that underachieve. And Cristiano Ronaldo is part of that group of players. And I don't think you can separate both of them. And certainly you cannot put Ronaldo at a level in which, hey, he's in the team of the year. The rest of his teammates are awful, but we're just going to love Ronaldo, and then we're not going to talk about the rest of Manchester United. It just doesn't make any sense.
Mark, you were talking on the show about Manchester United prioritising getting Cristiano Ronaldo out the door. Should he be out of this list in this PFA Team of the Year?
I'd take Mane out of the list. I think that Ronaldo deserves where he is because of the goals he scored, but I'd take Mane out because I think Liverpool could have done what they did without Mane's goals to Salah's goals. I know it's kind of complicated, but I'd be interested to see what Xhaka thinks, because when players vote, do they take it seriously, or do they just put the names that come to mind?
You're asking the absolute wrong person here. I stopped voting. So I stopped voting, in all seriousness, in 99. David Ginola won Player of the Year in 99. Manchester United did the treble. Well, for me, of course, my opinion was rather biased, especially at the time. I thought Dwight York should have won it. So once somehow, I don't know how you picked David Ginola. I can't remember exactly where Spurs finished that season. But once some kind of criteria is established where Ginola was better than everybody from Manchester United, then I divorced myself from that process back then. And so, I mean, I played on for another, 8 years? I never voted after that.
So some may not take it too seriously, because, yeah, it is worth reminding, this is the award that is voted by the players. Xhaka not happy with his fellow players at the time.
Ever since then. I'm still angry.
Still absolutely fuming about it. Just to go back to what Mark was saying yesterday about Manchester United prioritising getting Cristiano Ronaldo out, basically an out with the old and in with the new, a new era there. What are your thoughts on it, Ale?
Well, you're bringing in a new manager, of course, right? And it would be very easy to think about the future of Manchester United and Ten Hag and him starting to put his imprint on the team. And how do you do that when you have a legend right there, sitting in the locker room, but yet you're thinking about the future? He's not part of the future. And it's so very difficult and so very touchy and sensitive subject to go to Cristiano Ronaldo and say, look, you may have been in the team of the year, But it is better for me as a new manager that I have the players in place that I think are going to be useful to this club for years to come. And I want to set us in a path in which you may not be part of the plans, but it's not what I want to do. It is so difficult to make decisions when you have this guy hanging around here, right? If your future plans do not include this guy, and he's a major, major piece, a generational talent, one of the best players and most productive players in the history of this game. And somehow you're going to tell me, Cristiano, as I look into the future, you're not my guy. How do you tell that to Cristiano Ronaldo? How does he become a guy coming off the bench? Is that a role that he's willing to accept? And is that a role that is comfortable for Ten Hag, having this guy here? I just don't see how that makes it comfortable for Ten Hag if indeed he's thinking about, okay, if we're thinking about the future, then yes, younger would be better than whatever else you got going on. Hang on to Cristiano Ronaldo for too long, and this is going to make you just use the word a divorce there. This would be a messy divorce.
Here's the discussion for Manchester United, and I don't think that there's a right or wrong decision to this, because while what Ali's saying is absolutely right, and that's one approach, the other could be, well, as we look in this dressing room, where are the world-class talents? And again, two players I just mentioned, David De Gea and Cristiano Ronaldo. Paul Pogba is a world-class talent, but he's failed to deliver in his time there. He's on his way out the door. So it comes down to the hierarchy of the club trying to decide what's the best approach. And Ten Hag has to be an important part of those discussions. Whether it is we're going to keep the world-class talent that we have and build on that, or we just start afresh and we look at what this club is going to look like in 5 or 6 years' time, after 3 or 4 transfer windows, whatever it may be. And those are the executive decisions that you live and die by. And as I started, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It's just one that the club has to fix on.
And not that Manchester United would have paid attention to this, but there are some parallels here with the situation with Barcelona and Lionel Messi. And just learn from how that hangover of Messi and Barcelona, how that whole story played itself out to the point to where it became an untenable situation for Ronald Koeman eventually. For me, if you're thinking about, okay, if this is a youth movement, then go with the youth movement. But this in-between is going to make it uncomfortable for everybody.
Well, let's bring you up to date on who else scooped awards in these PFA awards. You have Young Player of the Year award. You also have the Women's Player of the Year. It was Sam Kerr for Chelsea in Australia. She won the Women's Award. Lauren Hemp and Phil Foden, both from Man City, winning the Young Player of the Year award. Lauren Hemp making history as the first 4 times winner of that award. Well, one man who very much looking like he is on his way to play his football in England is Darwin Núñez, a new kid on the cop. Say the mirror. Oh, you know what? I miss the English back pages and these awful puns. No, I don't. The talks really have said to have ramped up. Key hours ahead in this move. Although we are hearing that even though this seems to be so close, Mark, with Liverpool, as late as today, Manchester United have been contacting his agent. What do you know about it?
The situation is that Liverpool want the guy, but they haven't put a bid in yet. They haven't registered an official bid. They know what they expected to pay, too high. United's position is the same. Benfica want, is it £100 million, which they both think it's too much. So there's a sense between both clubs that Benfica and Núñez's people are trying to kind of create an auction, create a bidding war for him that would enable, Benfica to get more money out of it. And I think that both clubs have been wary about putting too much emphasis on the deal. So Liverpool, I think, are the favourites because, you'd go to Liverpool, wouldn't you? You'd go to Liverpool ahead of Man United. United, I'm told, are prioritising a central midfielder. Frenkie de Jong is the guy they want. That is what Ten Hag wants. He wants to get a midfielder in. So if it means getting a midfielder in before they have to spend on a forward, that's what they'll do.
Now, on yesterday's show, Stevie Nicol said he would be happy to let Mane go for 40 million and spend more. We're talking some of these prices that we're hearing, up to 100 million euros for a player like Darwin Núñez. But it's interesting because isn't it safer to stick with what you know? Would that be a bit risky to, yes, get a high fee there, but also then spend so much more money for someone who is unproven in the Premier League.
To your point, Kate, it is safer to stick with who you know, but this is a game in which players age out of rather quickly, and you just have to look at this side of the table for evidence of that. So clubs are always having...
Are you including yourself?
You're this side of the table, that's what I said.
It felt like you were saying this side of the table.
My point being, so clubs always have to think about what's next and taking that risk and putting a price on that risk. And the truth is, Sadio Mane has got a year left on his contract. He's 30 years old. He's already said that he wants to leave. So if you can get 40 million for Sadio Mane, absolutely, I think you do that. If it costs another 40 on top of that to get to Nunez, then again, for a 22-year-old, I think it's worth it. I think it's also complicated to that point by Mo Salah also having a year left on his contract. Because as much as you may want to stick with what you know, all of a sudden what you know maybe walk out the door, both of them, for nothing in 12 months' time.
And you've also got the situation at Liverpool where Minamino, they listen to offers for Minamino, that's 17 million not for him. Origi's going. If Mane goes as well, Mane, Origi, Minamino in one summer, and there's doubts of a Mo Salah as well, they have to kind of look to the future. Now, they brought in Luis Diaz, as we know, fantastic signing. Diogo Jota, again, fantastic signing, but they do need to bring somebody in who will be their main guy for, maybe the next 4 or 5 years. So that's where Nunez comes in.
And so in that sense, and given the fact that they have had success with the previous signings, with some of the names you just mentioned there, is it not too risky then to be paying this type of money for a player that they've identified?
Well, I think, and I know it's difficult for us mere mortals to turn the page on $100 million and just say, well, yeah, that's just the going price. Well, that is the going price for this sort of talent at this sort of age. And while we kind of fixate on the number, I think if you're Liverpool, you're more fixated on the fact that you went into a Portuguese team and got a great player in Luis Diaz. And you have an opportunity here in doing the same thing, going to Benfica and getting Darwin Nunez. And because of the great result that you got from Luis Diaz and already the early returns from Luis Diaz, you're saying, I trust as a club that we can do the same thing with this guy and that he can have the same sort of impact. Now, whether that's the case or not, we won't know until Darwin Nunez shows up. But I think what they see in the player is some of the same attributes they see they saw in Luis Diaz, and energy, speed of play, speed of movement. The profile of the player seems to fit Liverpool. And if that's the case, you're no longer fixated on the number itself. You're fixated, is this a piece that fits into what we do? Is this a piece that makes sense for us? And if that's the case, you go for it. This is the way the market works nowadays.
When it comes to that and talking about him coming in at this stage as well, and you're hearing the likes of Manchester United still in there, you did allude to it. You think that this player, there would be no worries that he would go for Liverpool over United?
I mean, you guys know, in football, they go with the monies as well. The money and the challenge. And I think with Liverpool, because they are losing players right now, Mane, Origi, Minamino, he's going to go to Liverpool and play. So if I was him, I'd go to Liverpool because they're going to win things. Man United have got Rashford, they've got Sancho, they've got Martial, they've got Ronaldo. Ten Hag thinks he can get more out of Rashford, so maybe United have got a stock there that they can get better performances out of. So Nunez might think, well, I'll go to Liverpool, I'll play, and I'll win. So it's a fairly convincing argument, isn't it?
Don't underestimate the importance of having played against Darwin Nunez, just like you played against Luis Diaz. It's not you're watching video or somebody sent you a tape or somebody referred you to the player and you saw him. No. You played against that guy. And you knew how difficult it was to keep up with Luis Diaz, or in this case, keep up with Darwin Nunez. Those are things that Jurgen Klopp is paying attention to and says, this guy fits us. And I think that's important.
Did the players talk to the coach about this?
Well, I imagine so, yes. It's like, whenever the coach brings up the names, like, man, this guy's a handful. We couldn't keep a handle on him. He turned me this way. He turned me that way. He's quick. He's strong. All those things you figure out right away when you're playing against somebody that surprises you, that perhaps you were not You were aware that he may have been a good player, but now you play against him. It's like, man, this guy's so much better than I thought he was going to be, and he is a handful. I can't keep up with him as a defender. Yeah, you would relay that information to whoever, whether that's the assistant coach or to Jurgen Klopp. And if you're asked about him, certainly you would also give your input and say, yeah, this is a guy that can certainly fit in.
You've nodded along there.
Yeah, no, I mean, just from back in my day, when I played for Newcastle, Kevin Keegan signed Darren Peacock, because he went to Andy Cole and asked which centre-half gave Andy the most trouble. And he said Darren Peacock, who was at QPR at the time. Newcastle signed Darren Peacock. And that happens far more often than I think we on the outside looking in would appreciate. Even if it's just that initial kind of recommendation, and then the manager would go look, or the scouts would have a look, and then there'd be discussions. But that happens very often because there are a lot of those small nuances that happen on the field that, regardless of how long you're in football, you just can't appreciate from the sidelines.
Well, you guys mentioned Paul Pogba earlier. Here's what he's had to say about his departure at Manchester United. I just want the best for me. I need to enjoy what I do because otherwise I cannot perform well. We can be losing games, trophies, but you have to be happy and enjoy yourself. That's what I'm looking for. Everybody wants to feel loved. Everybody needs that in your soul to feel appreciated. I like to talk to the people and be a leader, but even a leader sometimes needs his teammates to be encouraged. They need to bring him up. Being a leader is helping your teammates to the biggest potential. We can fight, but it has to be for the good of the player, the good of the team. And he brings the level up, brings the positive energy. People trust him. He trusts the people. What do you make of what he said there, Mark?
Actions speak louder than words, don't they? You know, let's do it on the pitch. Don't talk in an Instagram post or some clever video. Pogba just needs to play. He needs to play and perform and show all those kind of messages on the pitch. And it's been too long now, hasn't it? It's been, 5-6 years since he went to United and disappointed. He can be a leader. People at United told me that he was very good behind the scenes in terms of he was popular, he helped people, the staff as well as the players, but he didn't show enough on the pitch. And that is the issue for me, that he's got to start performing and put all these words to one side and just let people say what a great player he is, not what he said this week or that week. Just let him play.
What have you made of it, Ale?
Of all the things that we saw there, I think we've heard versions of this in the past, one way or another, from Paul Pogba. But when he's talking about you can maybe lose trophies or lose games, but you still have to be happy, I have no idea what locker room he's been a part of in which you lose trophies and you lose games and you're happy. That's not professional sports. And certainly at a club like Manchester United. Now, I understand that there are some locker rooms that are better than others, that are able to handle losing better than others and react to losing to where next match comes around and, man, these guys are ready to go, which we never have seen from Paul Pogba or Manchester United with any consistency in his time there. So if he's going to be a leader, and if indeed he thinks of himself as a leader, those are the times when the team is down, when the team is not winning trophies, when the team is not winning games, when you're losing with some consistency, that's when the leader has to come out. That's not when the leader needs somebody to go to him and say, "You okay, Paul? Are you all right? You gonna make it through this?" No, it's your role right there as a team leader to then say, "You know what? I have the experience. I've been through this before. Let's get together. Let's make sure that we perform. You do your job. You do your job. I'll do my job, and we're going to get out of this together." Instead, you're telling me, you know what? If we're losing and we're not winning trophies, I just want to be happy, man. It doesn't work that way.
Is it easier said than done, though, Shaka? Because we're hearing from Mark there that behind the scenes they say that he was the leader with the staff, with the players, and then you've got the club, what it is at the moment, Manchester United, coming onto the pitch to be a leader. Is that harder than it would seem?
Well, yes, in short. And as much as Mark is saying that Pogba is a leader behind the scenes, I don't have that access. I don't have that access that Mark does. I can only judge Pogba's leadership qualities by what I see on the pitch. And for all the qualities that he brings, I don't think leader is one of them. I think you see it in glimpses with France in particular. But then there are other such huge personalities in that French squad, Mbappe and Griezmann and Benzema, that I think he leans into that. He arrived at Old Trafford because they felt that at the time 6 years ago, they needed leadership, and that Paul Pogba, given his experiences, given his physicality, his presence on the park, would be the leader that they needed. But he wasn't. And that's where I think he's been most disappointing. I love Paul Pogba, and I'm trying to sympathise as best I can. Really, I am. And I understand in parts what he's saying, because I feel that Paul Pogba is one of those players, he wants to play with a smile on his face. He wants to come up with a new hairstyle every week and doesn't want to be judged for that. But surely Pogba, given his time in England before coming back, understands what the British media is like, understands what the Manchester United fan base is like. You can have a new hairstyle, you can have all the antics when the team is winning. From the time the team isn't, that's where you're going to be judged. Rightly or wrongly, that's how the British media treats you. So I don't give him...
If only we had a member of the British media here. What? That guy!
We blame Mark for all the criticism.
See, Pogba has the status in the dressing room, he has the quality and all the attributes to be the leader, to go onto that pitch and say, right, I'm the guy, follow me. But he never seemed to do it. He always seemed to fall down when he went onto the pitch. It was almost like he was looking for other people to carry the load. But, you know, off the pitch, behind the scenes, yeah, he's the guy that everyone gravitates to. But when he was on the pitch, he failed to take that opportunity and use his talent and his personality to do it. And that's what let him down. He had it all there.
The thing is, he's not unique in that regard. There are a number of players you could point to who are great and who are outstanding in good teams, but then when the pressure's on them to be that leader, they don't live up to that expectation. So it's not, you know, this isn't a one-off. This happens a lot in football. This is just the most recent and certainly right now the most high profile.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. But then come on and accept that.
Yeah.
And don't make these statements and which we have seen too many times from Paul Pogba. It's always some sort of interview with a French newspaper, with this person, with that person, Instagram. Okay. All those things we understand. And in a career, you're going to have high moments, you're going to have low moments. Fine. Okay, we're reasonable people. We understand where you... Well, I like to think that we are.
Most
right?
people.
This side of the table.
Yeah, this side of the table. The British media, I'm not so sure. But when you where you lose me is when you don't, in the moments in which there are opportunities for you to take responsibility and say, you know what, I just haven't been the best version of myself at Manchester United. And I haven't been able to display what I thought I would be able to do here in this club. And that's on me. At no point is there an assumption of responsibility and saying, I could have been better. If the situation and the circumstances would have been better, I think I would have thrived in a better environment. It wasn't set up for me to succeed, but I take responsibility for the things that I haven't done myself personally.
I totally accept that. I will though say that I find that that's a symptom of today's football.
Oh, well.
And I'm not overly active on social media, but every time something happens, some other player's taking to social media with some kind of riddle of a statement that I just, maybe it's generational, I just do not understand.
Well, you also see when, you know, Maguire is one of those guys that after a poor performance says something along the lines...
Bruno Fernandes, and not to be picking on Manchester United players just because Mark's here, but Bruno Fernandes was... I'm like, what's going on?
That wasn't good enough. Well, yeah, no kidding, that wasn't good enough. We didn't need you to tell us that it wasn't good enough. And if you think that makes the fans feel better about you, that's nonsense.
Wouldn't have happened in my day. That's what that sounded like.
We barely had phones in my day.
Listen, if his transfer is seen as one of the failures in Manchester United's past, where does it rank among the failures in transfers?
Wow. I mean, the fact that he was a world record signing and didn't win anything substantial for 5 years, and that was a Europa League Cup. I mean, there's Angel Di Maria, there's Alexis Sanchez, there's, you know, Juan Sebastian Varane. He's probably top 3, top 4. Yeah.
There's lots of talk about this and more on the latest Gab and Joel's podcast.
Every single player.
Make sure to go and check that out. Stuart Robson is on the latest edition.
Come on, Stuart.
It's just all relaxed. That's the relaxed atmosphere you get over on the Gab and Joel's podcast. Portugal do top the group. Spain closing in there behind them. They're 3 points, lifting them up to second. It looks like it's going to be between the two of them who does finish on top of this group as we now welcome in Sid Lowe because we're going to talk about World Cup odds. Both of them there among the bookies, among the top. Spain 8-1, Portugal 12-1. So Spain favourites in this aspect. And we're going to talk about who everybody's got their money on. But I will start with you, Sid. How deep a run can you see this Spain side making in the forthcoming World Cup?
That's the question we were all asking ourselves, and it was what we were asking in the build-up to the European Championships as well. We saw so many weaknesses in the Spain team, and then they played really, really well, albeit there were moments when they were fortunate, of course, to get through. They didn't start particularly well the first two group games. They needed extra time against Croatia. They needed penalties against Switzerland to get to that semi-final when they were then the better team than Italy, and then they went into the Nations League and they beat Italy to get revenge for that, and then were very unfortunate to lose to France. It's genuinely difficult to judge what we're going to see from Spain, because I think what we see is a team that has a recognisable identity, a team that wants the ball, a team that pressures very high, but a team that, to use a Spanish phrase, leave you with doubts in the two areas. They don't finish enough of their chances, and they seem to give away goals from very, very little. And so I think there's a vulnerability about Spain now that means that I think we all believe that Luis Enrique knows what he's doing. We all believe that some of the talent is there, but I think we see points of weakness, and particularly in the two penalty areas.
Ale, should they be ahead of Portugal when it comes to favourites for lifting that trophy?
I think so. And Spain, in fact, against Portugal last week, they were better than Portugal and should have won the game. But we saw some of their vulnerabilities and some of the frailties that, again, we saw today against Switzerland. They were in full control of the game. And for some odd reason, first of all, they're unable to put somebody away. So they scored a goal, and it's difficult for them to get a second. But defensively, they start making mistakes that you just kind of go, my goodness, this is juvenile stuff. Unai Simon went hunting for butterflies, running outside his own 18-yard box for no particular reason. There was no decision to be made. Instead, he goes out there, misses out on the ball, and eventually Switzerland misses a chance. The same thing, long ball over the top, and Marcos Llorente misjudges the flight of the ball, and Diego Llorente, I should say, misjudges the flight of the ball, and now Switzerland are in a position where they can score a goal. So to the point that Sid was just making, while I like Spain a lot in their possession, and I like Gavi, and you know I love me some Pedri whenever he comes back from injury, and he'll make a difference in this team, and Busquets seems to be playing better. Through the midfield, they're going to possess the ball, but what they do with that possession, there is nothing that scares you from Spain in the final third, and there is a lot of things that scare you defensively from Spain's perspective in that defensive half. You just look at them defensively, you go, man, they are vulnerable in 1v1 situations, they're vulnerable with speed, they're vulnerable in trying to keep up with guys' movement off the ball. I like the midfield, the rest of the team, not so much, and yet, having said all that, I'll take them over Portugal because of what I saw last week. What I saw last week was a team that was better than Portugal, even with all those vulnerabilities.
Who makes the deeper run for you, Shaka, Spain or Portugal? I'm
leaning Spain, and I'm in keeping with both Sid and Ali. And I'll phrase it this way. I think Spain, between the two, have by far the greater potential, but they also have the greater potential to be their own worst enemies. If they can keep the mistakes out of their game, if they can just keep their own heads together, I think they're the better of the two teams. And sitting in a World Cup format and a slower tempo of game, I think Spain go further.
Do you have an opinion on this, on the World Cup odds, Mark?
You know, I like Portugal. I saw them in the playoffs when they came through against Macedonia in the final. I think they've got a lot of players who are playing right now at maybe the peak of their careers. Bernardo, Silva, Bruno Fernandes, you've got Ruben Dias at the back, João Cancelo, you've got Diogo Jota coming through. Otavio's a good player down at Porto. I think that this is their time, maybe, to challenge. I don't think, maybe not a favourite to win it, but I think they have that ability, all-round ability to go far this time. And obviously Ronaldo is, you know, he may be their weakness at times because, again, he's the guy that they are too over-reliant on, and can they take him out of the team and be better without him? But I think Portugal are a dangerous team in the World Cup this time.
I agree that they're a dangerous team. However, I'll go back to the first thing that you just said. They had to go through the playoffs in order to get to the World Cup. So that tells you that there are weaknesses here. And it is the same group of players that you just mentioned that had to go through that avenue in order to make it to the World Cup. Consistency is a big issue for them, and then Fernando Santos is going to have to release the parking brake of this team. He's going to have to trust the attacking players and say, yes, go display everything that you are offensively. I don't think he does that, and I think that limits Portugal as well.
Well, one of those Portuguese players has been heavily linked with a move to Spain. Mundo Deportivo today saying Bernardo Silva is an option. Bernardo Silva to Barcelona. We'll talk a little bit about this, given the fact that we've got Sid Lowe with us. That's another big star linked to Barcelona, Sid. How?
Every day it's a different name, and every day it's a name that seems even more implausible than the day before. And quite honestly, you do reach the point where you think, how is this happening? How are we getting these headlines every single day? Now, obviously, there's a couple of reasons for it. One of them is, of course, that Barcelona are working on what they keep referring to as levers. Palancas, as this word has now come into the, if you like, the football lexicon to mean a financial lever, which Barcelona are looking towards try and put together. But that really doesn't resolve the problem of the financial fair play rules in Spain and the summer limits. So they're still in a position where, for any amount of money they spend, they have to have made back 4 times that. They're on a 4-to-1 ratio. That makes it very, very difficult. One of the reasons why so many different names come out is, of course, because Barcelona are in that difficult position that they're scrabbling around and trying to think, right, what could the solutions be? And there are lots of possible solutions out there, although the reality is that most of them probably aren't solutions. And let me give you the answer on this particular case that Pep Guardiola gave. He was back in Catalonia this week. He was at a golf day. He was asked about Bernardo Silva. And it was quite bizarre because, in a way, he was asked about Bernardo Silva as if he was a pundit talking about Barcelona, rather than the manager who's about to lose Bernardo Silva in this case. And he said, well, I'm not sure if Barcelona can afford him. And I just thought, that's it. There it is in a nutshell.
Well, that's interesting, actually, because how much do you think Man City would want for a player like Bernardo Silva?
Well, they paid 100 million for Jack Grealish, and I think Bernardo Silva's more reliable than Jack Grealish at the top level. But he's a high earner. He's had a great season at the Etihad. I don't think City will sell Bernardo.
At times, this season that's just passed, he was Man City's best player at times. Didn't always get the plaudits that some of the other players do get. We've seen new players coming in now. We know that there's already a wealth of attacking options there at Man City. Is there a risk that if he sticks around LA, he's going to be kept on the sidelines?
I suppose there is a risk, but if you're Bernardo Silva, you're not going to a better project if you're going to Barcelona. Barcelona, while they seem to be trending in the right direction, they're still a long way away. And so you have to be very careful as to how you make this decision. I really think that for Bernardo Silva, I think Pep Guardiola has a soft spot for Bernardo Silva. And he will continue to find places for him on the field. There is a lot of flexibility and variety to his game, which I think Pep Guardiola truly appreciates, and truly appreciates his genius as a player. So I don't think that Barcelona would be a better setup for Bernardo Silva than what he currently has at Manchester City.
I think there are a couple of things to add here. That City want a defensive midfielder, so Frenkie de Jong could be part of any kind of deal here. But I think the players that are going to leave this summer, Raheem Sterling might go, and Gabriel Jesus. So Sterling and Jesus go, do they really need to lose Bernardo? I think that's asking a lot. But if Frenkie de Jong is part of any potential deal, then it may happen because City want a midfielder and he'd be perfect. But like Sid was saying, the numbers may not add up.
To your question, Kay, I think there's a real risk that Bernardo Silva may find himself further down the pecking order. But I thought that risk was a lot greater 12 months ago, where it seemed like he was on his way out. And then he had the season that he did. And the one thing every single footballer at this level does is back themselves. So regardless of what may be coming, Bernardo Silva sitting on the back of that season that he just had, whatever speculation is going on is not too troubling to him at all.
You mentioned Frenkie de Jong. Obviously, that could be dependent on this whole move, Sid, if it is to happen. What do you think the Barcelona fans would think of having Bernardo Silva come in and losing Frenkie de Jong? Would it be seen as an upgrade?
Oof. I honestly don't know what the view of the fans would be. I think fundamentally there's a broader question which isn't necessarily about a potential swap between one and moving from one to the other. I think there's a broader question which is about a recognition of the fact that if Frenkie de Jong goes, of course there will be an analysis of how well he played, and I think there will be some people who feel that they didn't quite see the very best of him. But I think more than anything else, I think there will be a recognition that his departure, if it happens, will be for economic reasons. So this will be the guy that could have been the right player for them, the guy that was bought in, that theoretically was Barcelona style, that was expensive. I think it was 70 million euros, if I remember rightly, when he came in. And that was seen as expensive, but the right signing. That really does stand him apart from some of the signings we've seen over the years. Pjanic, for example, even if that had worked out, that's the wrong reason for a guy to come in. Andre Gomes, that wasn't the right player. Arda Turan, that wasn't the right player. And we've just talked about midfielders now. And yet, I think with Frenkie de Jong, there was always a belief that, yes, this is the right guy. So if he goes now, I think more than... It's not really about whether he gets replaced by Bernardo Silva or by anybody else. It's more about looking at it and thinking, wow, our situation was really, really bad. We're so bad that we had to let Frenkie de Jong go because financially that was what we needed to do. And I think that will be the mindset if this eventually happens, that it was about the, if you like, the structural and the economic and the institutional difficulties that Barcelona have rather than about Frenkie de Jong purely as a footballer. I mean, the best possible example of this, of course, Kay, is let's go back to last year. They lost a guy called Leo Messi who was quite good at football, and they lost him because the financial situation was so disastrous for them.
Is it so terrible if you lose Frenkie de Jong if it's Bernardo Silva who would come in, Ale?
No, I don't think so. And I like Frenkie de Jong as a player, and I have to say that I guess the best way that I could put it, he hasn't been terrible for Barcelona. It's not one of these signings that you kind of go, man, he's been a disaster. No. But he left you thinking that there was more to give consistently. The moments in which he was running into the 18-yard box and was a late runner and a late presence, and he could actually add productivity. You just didn't see enough of that from Frenkie de Jong. And then there were times in which the possession was not as clean as it needed to be, and you felt like if you're looking for reasons as to why Barcelona was not successful, then Frenkie de Jong became part of the reason and an easy explanation as to why things were not working out. And the other thing I would say is, while I have said all these things, he is the one piece right now that I think you can actually get value in the market. So if you have financial difficulties and you're Barcelona, then you look around and say, well, who can we make money off? It could very well be Frenkie de Jong. And if you have Ten Hag and Manchester United that are willing to pay the money, you kind of go, well, here he is. Go ahead. You can have him if the price is right. And indeed, I think if you're Barcelona, you haven't been able to be in a position to actually negotiate. And this is one that you can actually negotiate and maximize his value, whatever his value is in the market right now.
Manchester United said to be interested in him. How likely is that to happen if he is to leave Barca?
Well, Man United need a midfielder. They like Frenkie de Jong and Declan Rice. Declan Rice is probably worth valued at twice as much as Frenkie de Jong. So obviously de Jong is the deal to do. But I'm told that de Jong isn't convinced that a move to United is the right deal. And I can understand that because they're not in the Champions League. They've got a new manager who he knows, but he's starting out in the Premier League, first time he's been there. So if I'm de Jong, I'm worried about going to Man United. But United look at it thinking, well, he's half the price of Declan Rice, so it's a no-brainer. The issue is persuading de Jong that Man United is where his future could be, because he knows that Pep likes him. So he may be thinking, just sit on it for maybe a month or two, maybe City might come in. So I don't think this deal gets done anytime soon.
Well, it's one thing to persuade a top player that Manchester United is where your future could be. What about a top player going to Getafe? Gareth Bale, namely, going to Getafe. The Getafe president, Angel Torres, says that he has been offered to play for the side. Sid's actually reported on this as well. He said people may take it as a joke, but about 45, 50 minutes ago, this was a few days ago, he said this, I spoke to his representative and they have offered him to us. We were talking to Gemma Soler about this yesterday, about whether people in Spain really do care if Gareth Bale stays in La Liga. Gareth Bale has said, I don't even have the president of Getafe's number. What are the thoughts on this in Spain, Sid?
More than anything else, there was a sense of, wow, Getafe, really? Crikey, that's a bolt from the blue. I mean, I think, look, there is a recognition. Once this story had broken, it kind of dawned on people that actually this means Gareth quite likes it here. This means he's not in a hurry to go, because of course the other story that had broken, I think the day before, was the suggestion that he'd spoken to Atletico Madrid. Now, we should say at the start here that the word from Gareth Bale's camp is that this isn't the case, that this isn't true, that there is no discussion with Getafe. And by the way, you just said it there, Kay. This did make me laugh. The suggestion that they don't even have the number of the Getafe president. Now, I don't know about you, but it's not much of an agent who hasn't got a way of getting in touch with a first division club in Spain. Now, and we all know that's not the case of the company that represents Gareth Bale, or indeed of the man who's represented him for a very long time. They have more than capable of speaking to the president of Getafe, should they so want to. It was quite bizarre in a way to hear the Getafe president do this so publicly, and it kind of felt a little bit staged. It kind of felt a little bit set up. But then afterwards, Angel Torres was saying, no, this is a possibility. And it just feels a bit odd, because if it really is a possibility, wouldn't you be discreet, at least for a little while, at least until you're confident this can be done, rather than coming out and possibly blowing the whole thing out the water by speaking too soon, obviously on the premise that it's even true in the first place?
Yeah, what a bizarre story. I mean, Gareth Bale's got plenty of options. What would you do if you were him? Would you like to go and play for Getafe, LA?
At the Coliseo Alfonso Perez? Yeah, okay. Look, he doesn't seem to match what Getafe does on the field.
They sell some great sandwiches outside.
Well, he can help with that, I suppose.
It's an easier life than at Real Madrid.
I don't see this. If you're Gareth Bale, you're now focusing on how do you get to the World Cup in the best level possible. How do you go about getting enough minutes, enough repetition? Not a whole lot, because we don't want you to get injured, Gareth, okay? You got to take care of your body. And you got to make sure that you go to a place in which you're going to be allowed the flexibility to essentially go and tell the manager, I'm not feeling it right now. My body doesn't let me play at this point. I can't train this day. I can't train that day. I don't know that you're going to get that at Getafe, because if you're Getafe, you're going to expect that Gareth Bale is going to be out there every single day. And that has not been the case and will not be the case in the near future for Gareth Bale.
So that's the top flight in Spain, La Liga. He's been linked with the Premier League, MLS, the Championship in England. Shaka, what are your thoughts on it all?
As I said a few days ago, nothing makes sense for Gareth Bale right now. I mean, probably in terms of where he can go and be relaxed and enjoy his football, go back to Cardiff, but that's in the Championship. That doesn't add up. In a footballing sense, I don't see how coming out to the MLS makes an awful lot of sense for him right now with the World Cup in mind, nor staying in Spain. I mean, if you cannot settle in Madrid, playing for Real, I don't know. Sandwiches aside, Kate, I don't know how Getafe is supposed to...
Or not playing for Real, though. Not playing for Real Madrid, and then still being able to perform on the international level in the way he does for Wales. With that in mind, does it matter if he plays top-flight football or second tier?
Well, and that's what I was going to get to, is the fact that when we're talking about Gareth Bale, we are evaluating Gareth Bale from the perspective of what we think to be logical, of what we think that should make sense. But he has proven, whether you like Gareth Bale or not, whether you appreciate what he has done or not, he has proven that he doesn't need to be in top form with his club to show up and be outstanding for his national team. Even having said that, though, you got to be able to run. You got to be able to physically get around the field. And there's some work that goes into that. I have to believe that he's got to be in an environment in which he's able to, at the very least, get his fitness work done and be in sharp enough level to where he can be at his best for Wales. But again, I'm coming at it from a perspective of logic and sense and experience, and none of this makes sense when you talk about Gareth Bale.
No, we're going to let Mark Ogden get off. He's got somewhere to be, actually.
Where are you going?
So we're going to say goodbye to him.
All right.
He's off to New York.
What a half day is this?
I see.
It's been great to have him here in the studio with us.
That's it.
We'll be hearing more from Mark as the days go on, no doubt. Anyway, Paulo Dybala across all of the Italian press right now because of the fact that he is moving on. Obviously, Dybala to Inter, Corriere saying, Gazzetta saying an agreement with Inter, Dybala the first yes, And Dybala, Inter, it's done. Now, despite all the headlines, it's definitely not done. Paulo Dybala is prioritising Inter. Talks are progressing, but apparently there are a few things to still be resolved. In other transfer news, Alexandre Lacazette returns to Lyon and a free transfer. Ferran Hukla joins Club Brugge from Barcelona. 5 million transfer fee and 10% of any future sale. And Divock Origi set to join AC Milan, according to reports, after 8 years at Liverpool. There's a lot more on this on our transfer website, Transfer Talk, and you can see more of Mark Ogden. You don't have to miss him too much.
Paid extra for that
over there.
The British media.
The British media. All right, we've talked a lot about the Nations League in UEFA. We must turn our attentions now to the CONCACAF Nations League, where the US men's national team opened their title defence versus Grenada on Friday. Kasey Keller will be joining us now to talk more about this. Kasey, tell us, what does Greg Berhalter learn from a match like this? Great to have you with us.
I think the first thing that he learns is which players aren't going to be up to the task to play in the World Cup. And I think that's always a difficult thing when you go into a match and you're a player knowing that I'm more likely to hurt myself than I'm able to help myself against this quality of opposition. But in the end, if you're a fringe player and you get a chance to play in this match, you know you have to perform and you have to perform well. Because if you don't, the manager and the coaching staff are automatically going to say, well, if they can't play against Grenada, how are they going to be able to play against England in a World Cup match? So first and foremost, just have a good game, because that's all you can do considering the opposition that you're playing against. And then hopefully it's enough to give you a chance down the road, because it doesn't matter. You score 3 goals in this match, you're supposed to score 3 goals in this match.
Well, you talk about having a good game. Let's talk about some of the players then, Kasey. Which players do you think can hurt their chances or maybe help their chances to make it into the World Cup squad this winter in this game?
I think first and foremost, Kay, it's going to be who, we have no idea who Greg's thinking of playing to start with, because I know there was a mindset with these 4 matches that this is the only opportunity that the U.S. national team is going to have an extended time period with this group of players. And that's why we're not seeing, the Pulisics and the Tyler Adams already on vacation for these 2 games. They want to keep everybody together and make sure that they have this block of time together. So that's the first question is Greg going to play the strongest team he can possibly play, or is this an opportunity to play some of the guys that he still has a question mark on? So let's go to some of those guys that he probably has a question mark on. We saw that Sean Johnson played the other day, which for me was a little bit of a surprise. A guy that originally wasn't even called into the squad, but got that opportunity to play the second game, got the clean sheet, made some key saves. So great for Sean Johnson. So let's see if that continues the way Greg was doing this, and if Ethan Horvath is playing this match potentially, then he's a player that needs to have a good game to match what Sean Johnson did the other day, to be able just to show his teammates, the coaching staff, the fans, that he's up to this task, that he's capable of coming in and being a good calming factor back there. I don't expect him to have to make a bunch of saves in this match. So then you do all those other things right. I think as well as you look at a player like Cameron Carter-Vickers, who I really like as a defender. I think he's like an old school, hard-nosed, wins every challenge in the air, great one-on-one defender. But maybe the question marks, was he good enough with the ball at his feet to kind of play in possession? Well, against Grenada, you would assume that the U.S. would have a lot of the ball and that he would then be asked to play under some sort of pressure with his feet. So opportunity for him as well. And then, and then again, a player like a Haji Wright getting a chance to come in, came in as a sub, the other day. But for example, does he start? Can he be dominating against a side like Grenada? Now, again, to the point that I made earlier, you're not going to make the team for scoring 2 or 3 goals against Grenada. But obviously, the expectation is that if you're the player that we think you can be in a World Cup, you should be able to be dominant against an opponent like Grenada. And so those are just a few players if they have the opportunity to play, and then combine that with, players like Jordan Morris and Christian Roldan, guys who've been around the squad a long time, haven't got a chance to play in the first couple matches. When you get that chance, like I said, you have to take it with both hands.
Kasey, when it comes to the UEFA Nations League, there's been a lot of criticism about these players having to play so soon after such a long season. Obviously, a lot of the US players are based in Europe and have had those long seasons themselves.
Right.
What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think it's another mechanism for FIFA to make money. Because you think you've got World Cup qualifying. You've got then in Europe, you would have the Euro qualifying. So let's shove this other thing in there so no country's going to have friendlies where we don't get a piece of the income is the only thing that really comes to my mind. It's nice, I think, when you get to the final stages of this competition. But in these group stages, do you think the U.S. would rather have a game against European opposition that are also stuck playing in Nations League there? Frustrating, I think, for everybody involved, but you play by the rules that are given to you. Excellent for a country like Grenada to get the opportunity to play against the U.S., but I think the U.S. would rather be playing a stronger opposition right now in such a short window and so few matches before this World Cup starts in November.
Kasey, great to have you on. Great hearing from you as well. Speak to you soon.
Thanks, Kate.
Okay, there'll be a lot more talk about the US men's national team on the latest edition.
I get the sense Grenada is not that good.
And Friday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Plus, you can take a look for yourself how Grenada are. Ale, you have little faith.
No, I'm just going from what they said.
Let's see what Football Americas have to say about it all, shall we? The latest
well,
one.
they're not very positive.
Well,
they're always fighting, these guys.
That's why we like it. Passion.
Well, they're passionate, I'll say that.
That's what it is. Thanks so much for being with us on the latest edition of ESPN FC. We have had your tweets in droves, and they're going to be answering them on Extra Time, so stick around. Sid's with us too. All right, who wants to be tasked with getting the Extra Time questions today?
Oh, do I need... Oh, hold on, change of pace? Do you need change of pace?
Let's see what you got.
Whoosh.
Oh, goodness.
Extra Time is here with you. Alejandro Moreno, who we barely saw, just the dust there behind him.
Well.
Shaka Hislop and Sid Lowe are with us. Here we go. We've got the questions. I hope you haven't had a sneak peek at them.
No, I have not. I play by the rules.
Who's Sid fooling with all those books, by the way?
What's that?
Why Sid in all them books?
Well, did he choose his best ones to be in shot?
Who's Sid fooling all them books?
You think he's read them all?
Yes.
No.
They're all fake. They're not real. It's a curtain that comes down behind me.
Yeah, I thought so.
Sid, I reckon you've read them all.
Not all of them, but most of them, yeah.
Ah, you're right, Ale. All right.
There's no chance he's read them all.
I don't know. He's written a few, you know.
What?
Yeah.
I know. He's told us that before. We've heard that plenty of times.
But Sid,
Well, his articles are kind of like books too, by the way.
This whole thing goes back. Well, this whole thing is just my office. It's the only place really set up. But this obviously goes back to pandemic, and for a while, although it took a lot of our viewers a very long time to realise it, I had put some fake books up there. I believe there was a Hislop's History, Dan Thomas's, I can't remember what it was. Lots of fake books. I mean, there was a real Gab Marcotti book up there somewhere, but I thought I'd much rather put the fake one up than the real one.
More interesting. The fake books are more interesting.
I did see the Gab one before, it's disappeared. I saw the Italian job.
I guarantee you the fake book is shorter.
All right, the first question is for you, Sid. Sid, you're Gareth Bale. Do you go to another club, and where are you choosing? And why is it Rayo Vallecano?
It absolutely 100% is Rayo Vallecano. It really is. Look, I mean, this is very simple, and I think we've seen this actually in Gareth's response after the game for Wales the other night when he was asked whether this puts his retirement on hold, and he said, well, for a while. And I genuinely believe that if Wales is Wales he plays for, isn't it? If Wales hadn't made it to the World Cup, I think he would have genuinely contemplated whether he continues at all. The fact they've gone to the World Cup means he absolutely has to. He has to continue at least until the winter window. And so then you look around and you think, well, there isn't really a need to make a big move, assuming you're looking at this from a short-term perspective, and I suspect that is the case. So why wouldn't you stay in Spain? Why would you move the kids from school? Why would you change house? Why would you uproot all of those things when you can go and play for another team in Madrid? And I think the possibility of playing for Atletico Madrid or Getafe or Rayo Vallecano, the three teams in Madrid that aren't Real Madrid, I think that all makes sense. And I love the question as well, because absolutely you'd go to Rayo. It's a completely unique experience. You've become a huge cult hero if you play well, and just something a little bit different. And the whole point is about getting yourself ready for the World Cup. And here's another thing, by the way, Rayo Vallecano's fitness trainer, their physical preparer, as they always call them in Spain, their fitness coach, is one of the very, very best in the business. So if you're looking at this in terms of trying to get in a position to be ready for the World Cup, why not?
What are your sandwiches like? What are your sandwiches like?
Oh, there's a pizza place around the corner from.
So pizza and the sandwiches is the selling point at Vallecano?
Yeah.
No, the sandwiches at Getafe.
At Getafe, yes, but Vallecano has pizza.
According to Kay.
Yeah.
The sandwiches
This
are
scouting
actually
report.
The sandwiches are, in fairness, even better at Leganés, but then they're in the second division at the moment, so I don't suppose he wants to go there. If he does want to go to the second division, if he does want to go to the second division, then it's really obvious what he should do. He should go to Real Oviedo and take them up to the first division. That's what.
Yeah, I wonder who Sid's favourite team is.
Now, see, Sid is assuming that Gareth Bale going to Oviedo means that he's actually going to play. And that is a very strong assumption.
I also love that Sid just reminded all the Italians that they're not going to the World Cup when he for a moment forgot that Gareth Bale wasn't Italian and he was Welsh.
I didn't mean to do it.
Yeah, sure I didn't.
Hard luck there, Sid.
Sure I did.
All right, Shaka, start, bench, or sell.
Sorry.
Oh, goodness me.
Start, bench, or sell. Thibaut Courtois, Iker Casillas, Keylor Navas.
And I'm going to assume at their peaks, at their respective peaks.
At their peaks at Real Madrid.
And we know the strong connection that you have with Keylor Navas.
Yeah.
All Champions League winners.
Wow, that's hard.
CONCACAF superstar Keylor Navas.
Oh, we've got Mark Ogden there.
Shaka disappeared.
Yeah, that's me trying to disappear. That is tough. That is hard. I'm going to start Iker Casillas. I'm going to bench Keylor Navas.
Wow. See, I knew that emotion would play a role
And
here.
Thibaut Courtois
Wow.
is still playing his way into my better graces.
Wow.
Keylor Navas won 3 Champions League.
Playing his way into your better graces. You just sold him.
When I say Navas has won 3 Champions Leagues. That's hard to. Even as good as Courtois has been this season, even as good as he was in the final, it's hard to get past it at 3.
You know what's hard to get
And
past? The emotional connection you have with Keylor Navas.
Yeah.
Still didn't start him though, did he?
And Casillas, to be fair.
Yeah.
I've ranked Casillas and Buffon as my 2 favorite keepers all time.
Yeah, but you'd still choose Buffon above Casillas, right?
Yeah, I'd choose Buffon third, but
Sid, what are your thoughts on this one? I like it. The goalkeepers at Real Madrid. Start, bench, or sell.
Well, I loved Ali saying there. It's hard to get what's difficult to get past is the emotional component here. What's difficult to get past is these 3 guys, and in particular Thibaut Courtois. It is really. I mean, Shaq's right. It's really hard if you are demanding that this is them at their greatest ever level at Real Madrid. It's really hard. But I must confess, the one that gets sold is Keylor Navas. It's then very hard to choose between Casillas and Courtois, because I think what Courtois has done this season is just so ridiculous. And yet, of course, what Casillas did for a while was ridiculous as well. I'm going to go Casillas plays for the first half. Courtois comes on in the second half, and Keylor Navas, I'm sorry, gets sold.
Would you change any of that, Ale?
Hold on a second. So he didn't bench anybody?
no, I don't
Like,
know.
no, that's still classed as benching if they
No,
play
it
for
sounded-
the first half.
It sounded like people are playing. If you are in Sid's
I know Sid should have
team,
done
everybody's playing.
Sid should have done the actual Real Madrid thing of playing one in the Champions League, one in La Liga. Then he might have got away
I should
with
have
it.
thought that.
Copa del Rey.
There you go.
I'm going to go with Shaq.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'm not even sure I'm going with Shaq.
He's changing his mind now.
No, that is hard. I'll be honest.
How's Shaq doing?
Changing it now.
I'm sticking with it for now. For now. You better ask another question before changing.
We will.
Right.
We've got a few for Sid.
Ask another question.
Say hi to Shaq for me, okay?
I will.
For Sid, who do you see as Spain's best midfield three?
Oof, that's difficult as well. Busquets, Pedri, and Gavi.
Ali's nodding along.
Yep, I'm with Sid. And this guy's
To be fair with Ali, you could have picked Pedri, Coco the Clown, and the mascot from Vallecano, and Ali would have been okay with it.
okay.
As long as you have Pedri, Ali don't care who else you mention.
Hey.
That's the truth.
Hey, have you seen Coco the Clown play?
Not this week.
Man, he's so good on the turn. Let me tell you something.
Alongside Pedri?
Yeah, spatial awareness.
As long as it's alongside Pedri,
Yeah.
Ali's okay with it.
Yeah.
Got massive feet.
That's
though.
the truth.
Right.
Pedri and +2.
Sid, if you could recommend one Spanish side stadium to visit for a match, which would it be?
Oof. I would say go to either the Sanchez Pizjuan or the Benito Villamarin for a Seville derby. It really doesn't matter if it's at Betis or at Sevilla, but it's brilliant.
What are your sandwiches like?
Fantastic, and there's much more than sandwiches. I have to agree with him there because then you get to
know the
visit the
food
same
in every
city.
single stadium,
Of
okay?
course.
I'm a little bit concerned every single stadium.
6 seasons with Real Madrid, travelling to every game with
So
them.
you went to
get
every
know the
restaurant?
food with
You went to
tortillas.
every restaurant within a 5-mile radius of every stadium?
They had to stay in their hotel. We didn't. We got to go and enjoy the cities.
San Mamés. I would say San Mamés.
San Mamés. Good choice.
Yeah.
It's a good shout.
Bilbao.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a different feel about San Mamés as well.
Look at Ali being all cultured and cosmopolitan. There's a different feel in the air at
The kid's going to
Bilbao.
tell you about what food there is.
Okay, I'm
Great
sorry.
food there.
Hey,
Lovely.
they sell great pinchos outside. Okay.
Lovely gyros just up the block. Here's going to wait a minute.
Okay, speaking of, Sergeant Barnes would like to know, to the boys, which one of you is the better cook?
Just argue, let Sid and Ali argue among themselves who's second.
All right, well,
Whoa.
let's first argue why you're first.
Because I'm the best cook of the three of us, that's all.
What's your signature dish?
I can give whatever you want. I got it. In the locker.
What is your go-to?
I go to whatever you want.
No.
I produce a menu. You tell me what you want. You place an order. I've got an app and everything.
Uh-huh. Is this the same app you were learning Spanish in?
Do that.
Because
In that app.
that app failed miserably.
That app was awful.
How did you go?
That app was awful. That app was, good Lord, that app.
What's your go-to, Shaq?
Huh?
What's your go-to?
I do it all, Alex.
Oh, well, okay, fine. Tonight
I
you go home. What you put on the plate?
Tonight, nothing. I'm gonna go home till late.
It seems like you're dancing around the question.
No, I'm just saying. I cook a variety of dishes.
Okay.
Well, he's confident he's top of the panel.
confident. Yeah, I'm
Can you
confident
name
I'm
a
top.
nice dish?
Look,
Confident on top.
I am resourceful. I am not the best cook. However, if indeed I'm put in a position in which I have to produce something for the kids, I manage.
You go to a drive-through.
No. No, I can put something together at home, but I wouldn't do it every night.
Romantic meal for your wife. What are you cooking?
No, not then we're going out. Yeah.
Sid?
Let's do the classic cheat, shall we? With the cheat that somehow, I don't know what it is that means you can always do this. If you can't cook, you say, I'll do the barbecue. Which is basically involved standing there drinking the beer, watching the flames.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone's happy at a barbecue.
Everybody's happy.
That's the truth.
That's a go-to, by the way. Just put the steaks on and flip them. They're done. Let's go.
I'm still not convinced as to who's the best, but I know only one of you has ever brought to me here on set specialty ice cream. He didn't make it, but he did bring it. So Shaka wins.
I have a cultured palate. Eh?
Shaka,
That's what you call that.
let me ask you, your recipes, do you get that from the same place you get your power rankings?
Data driven, Ali. Data. Use the data.
The algorithm?
The algorithm.
Use the data.
I think we're done.
Yeah, see, he knows.
We're not.
He knows. He
Well,
knows.
I'm sitting laughing. Sid's going to
the
knock
level
over
of
his
power
bookshelf in a minute.
right
He
there.
knows.
Sid's going to knock over his bookshelf.
Between the Spanish app
green
and your
screen.
algorithm.
What did you learn in Spanish?
Huh?
What did you learn in Spanish?
Not a lot.
Yeah, no.
That's the short answer to that question.
No mucho.
No mucho. No mucho.
Ni siquiera un poquito.
Gracias.
That's it.
Horrible. All right.
You're very welcome. De nada. De nada.
You just can't just throw random words out there.
We're going to end it here and try and help Shaka with his Spanish.
What? No. I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm getting by. I'm getting
Me
by.
defiendo bien.
What?
That's all we've got time for. Thanks so much for your tweets. We'll see you tomorrow.
Were you
Same
saying
time, same
¿qué?
place.
Okay.
Vamos a volver.
¿Qué? ¿Qué? ¿Qué?